I haven't. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would like to give a brief update on our channel and our show. First of all, our subscribers are continuing to grow on YouTube. As of now, I think by the time I drop this, we will have surpassed 150 subscribers. A
Excellent.
drastic, yes, increase from the 0 subscribers we started with last year. Whenever we started this,
That's
drastic
good.
increase. Yes,
Yeah, and
that's
I
it.
hope
And
people are enjoying it. Yes.
oh yes, I've gotten several emails from some of our listeners and our viewers out there, which everybody
Hmm.
should be a viewer now because Apple Podcasts is now supporting video, as well as Spotify is supporting video too. I managed to go on there, so we are on video platforms on both of them. But if you enjoy Read on the Record podcast, if you could share this with a friend, me and Dan would really, really, really appreciate it. And we are mainly sharing the YouTube video with, with the people who attend our
Hmm.
seminars. This isn't something that we've been really trying to push out there into the general public, at least not yet. But with that being said, later this year, me and Dan are coming up with some very, very exciting ideas for the podcast. In the very near future, we will be having more author guests that's going to be coming on the show, much like Kevin DeBose. And we will also be having a giveaway. So if you send us a question that stumps me or Dan, we will be giving you a shout out. We'll be sending you a giveaway. And we've got some other little
Nice.
contests. Yes, some little stuff out there in mind to help, kind of draw some interest into the Reid technique.
Good.
But where we're standing as far as our subscribers on podcasts
Hmm.
across all platforms, we have surpassed 500 followers on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So thank you so much for those of you
Yes.
who have subscribed to us. And when I was talking to some of the people who have attended our seminar, a lot of them told me, they said, Frank, I don't really want to watch it on YouTube because I'm driving around, but the
Mm.
Apple Podcasts and the Spotify works really, really well. So
Good.
from
Good.
Dan, yeah, from Dan and myself, a big thank you to everyone out there.
Yes, sir.
All right, and Dan, I have two things that's going to be lined up for us. Are you ready, sir?
I am ready.
All right, the first thing I have is a listener question. This was sent to readontherecord@gmail.com. Again, that's readontherecord@gmail.com. If you would like to get in contact with either Dan or myself, please shoot us an email. If you have any questions, any comments, anything that you would like to be read out loud, just let us know. And for the attendees, there's about 4 or 5 of you who sent me a question at my fschumpert@read.com email address. I will be compiling all of your questions together, and what I will be presenting to Dan is a dedicated Q&A episode where I will be reading out to him 11 or 12 questions that were sent in by some of our listeners out there. And we're going to do our best to stump Dan is what we're going to do. We're going to see
No,
if we
that's
can
not
get
too
him a little
far.
tongue-tied.
That's
That's it.
pretty easy to do.
I think that's the only truthful thing that you've said so far, Dan. So I'm really liking that. Good indicators across those 3 channels that you're being truthful with that. So this listener's question is sent to us by Detective Anonymous, Investigator Anonymous, Officer Anonymous. Thank you so much for your service. Gentlemen, one of my current investigations has led me to believe that my victim is not being truthful due to physical evidence that proves otherwise and deceptive indicators in the interview. Due to the nature of the crime, in this case, the R word, I don't want to say what the R word is, it's
Hmm.
RAPE, it is debated whether or not to use the interrogation to get her to confess due to the sensitivity of the offense and essentially calling I'll just say it, essentially calling a rape victim untruthful.
Hmm.
What are some strategies that you would implement with an untruthful victim when the offense is as sensitive as this? If you don't mind leaving me anonymous, if you guys read this, that would be awesome. Thank you so much for what you do in your time. Thank you, Officer Anonymous. Thank you for that question in here.
Great. Yeah, that's a great question, and certainly it's always been a very touchy area in dealing with victims, and certainly you got to be so careful in these things. But I think one of the things that would be helpful here is going through an interview, non-accusatory, obviously, our interview, our BAI. I would not really start out the interview with that person like we normally do, saying if you did do this, our investigation will show it. If you didn't, our investigation will show that. Our you question. I would more or less start out and you probably already have done this, getting their side of the story in that, uh, and not challenging them, let them talk about the whole incident itself. And then I'd ask, what comes to mind right now, some really good BAI questions, such as is that one of them, what do you think should happen to the person who did this to you? A little variation on our punishment question. And many times in these types of cases where a victim either may be making up a story or exaggerating it, you'll find that they'll either come across in a question like that by saying, well, I don't know, that's not for me to say, well, it doesn't matter, or they're going to be somewhat lenient in the consequence to the person that did this to them. Well, they should get help, they should get counseling, just hope that they wouldn't do it again, that type of thing. And to me, that would help indicate that maybe the victim's story is not 100%. Now, certainly in cases like this, there's two extremes. One is that they're making up the entire story, or the other part of it is they're exaggerating some aspects of it. And I think from an investigator standpoint, from your interview, you really have to kind of establish where you feel the individual is coming from. Is the whole story made up, or is it just being exaggerated to some degree, overemphasizing some things? And some people do that to add more credibility to the story. I mean, the victim was wronged in some way, but in order for people to really take it more seriously, they exaggerate perhaps what may have happened. And another good question would be, you think the person who did this to you would deserve any kind of second chance or consideration? Many times with a question like that, people that are being truthful would be almost immediate in their response, saying no, absolutely not, no consideration. And what should happen to the person? They should go to jail. They should pay for what they did to me. Where victims that may be making up stories are more lenient and are going to be very cautious in this particular area. It catches many times, I think, the person that's maybe exaggerating or lying off guard. They're not prepared for questions such as these two, and I think they're really good to throw in after you hear their side of the story.
Yes, I agree with that. And what I would do as well is two additional steps. Number one is, with these types of cases, we always have to be careful of, like you said, Dan, hey, is it 100% false? Is it just 80% false? What are we dealing with? But for me, the real key in the question is in the first sentence. It says, one of my current investigations has led me to believe that my victim is not being truthful. And he bases it in part, it says, due to physical evidence that proves otherwise. What I would do is I would take a real close look at that physical evidence, make sure that it was obtained properly, make sure that there's no kind of, any kind of issues could come up later with it. And for the deceptive indicators in the interview with your victim, I would write up a summary statement where you can express your thoughts and words and back up how the investigation is leaning in this direction. This isn't something that you need to submit in your report, just something in your own notes. And then what I might do is go to your local prosecutor before you waste any kind of time. And I'm talking from personal experience from having worked cases like this.
I know where you're going on this, yeah.
Exactly. And say, hey, even if I discover what's going on, would this be a case that your office would accept? Because anonymous, I would hate to see you put in all this work, you re-interview this alleged victim, and even if you get an elicitation of truth and she says, hey, you know what, actually made it up because I was angry or I was ashamed or I was embarrassed. And as a matter of fact, a little bit of a shout out to our seminars out there, Dan. Whenever we cover theme development, we have a whole thing on false accusations of kidnapping, harassment, and sexual assault. Just a little bit of those justifications that people will give themselves and those around them. So this is something that we take into account in the Reid technique. But I will talk to your prosecutor and make sure that your prosecutor is on point. And a lot of time, prosecutors, they're very limited in the types of advice that they can give because there can't be seen to be influence in the outcome of a law enforcement investigation. But every now and then, I've gotten some really, really good stuff from them. And then from that conversation with your prosecutor, they may tell you, I want X, Y, Z. And then that can help kind of formulate and solidify your investigative direction. Because right now, you don't really have so much a question about if she did it or not. It's really, what direction am I going to go in? Am I going to close it out extraordinarily with that code C and just let it, just get reported to your state, whatever the one regulates your police reports, or is it something that you're going to close out another way? So,
and Frank, just to say something in this is that. We are assuming in this case that it might be a female, but also we don't know all the particulars, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
But you do have sometimes children exaggerating claims that some teacher or somebody sexually touched them or did this to them for various reasons as well. So you kind of have to look at the investigation, whoever the victim is what possible motive would they have to really make up the story? Is it and some of the common factors are revenge. Did the person say or do something to them in the past that they're trying to get even with them? Are they doing it for, and the number one, obviously, in these things is the need for attention. Now that I've made this claim, people are being nicer to me. My spouse is paying more attention, being more caring. Other people are treating me nicer. Another one would be, depending on the situation, financial. They're trying to, in some cases, we see this sometimes in sexual harassment cases at facilities where they're making up the story in hopes that the company will either give them some type of promotion or maybe a financial settlement in the case. So there can be a lot of different factors in there, but we got to look at all the particular ideas as to what possible motives a person has if in making up the story. And let's be the assumption that they are making up the story. What contributed to this, and based on that, it's kind of give you an idea of where you're going to go when it comes time to try to elicit from them that they either made up the story or exaggerating part of it.
Exactly, yeah. So I think and really in answer to the question is, I would treat it like any other case, a real thorough factual analysis again. And as a matter of fact, a couple of questions I have is, how was it reported? Who reported it? Who does she tell first? Was it law enforcement? Was it someone else? Before you talk to her, you might want to go and re-interview the major players in it. And I'm real curious about the physical evidence in there. And then whenever, and as Dan was explaining, if you bring her back for an interview, if you do decide to pursue it, which of course you can do, you can do a soft interview just trying to see what her story is or why she did it, or you could go in there and just do a full out structured behavioral analysis interview. Ask her a good history U question, and I would formulate that around the thesis of, hey, the investigation has taken another turn. We are now investigating whether or not your initial story was true or not, whether or not it actually happened,
truthful,
or completely truthful. Yeah, something with that type of terminology in it. And then, so you could do a history U question like that, and then let everything else flow downstream from that question. And really, though, it's really going to come down to, unfortunately, with these kind of cases, is just your prosecutor.
Yeah. And
I
I
have
think,
actually got,
yeah.
yeah, go on.
Go ahead, Frank. Go ahead. No, go.
Well, I was going to say in my law enforcement career, I've actually gotten a substantiated, independently substantiated confession. This one was a male suspect, actually, who had made an allegation of sexual assault against his boss at a warehouse.
Hmm.
Full confession and everything. And when I called the prosecutor's office, because I was about to take him to jail, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to make a quick phone call first. And they asked me a ton of questions. I was on the phone on hold with them for like 30 minutes. And then they eventually said, well, is that all you've got? And I said, well, I've got a full confession. You made it up. And they said, well, um, we'll see about. And so I arrested him and he was charged, but they ended up dropping it to something else that had
Hmm.
nothing to do with false information to the police. I can't remember what the initial statement was, but a lot of
Unfortunately,
prosecutors'
cases
offices,
like
yeah,
this, it's the
yeah, they're
appearance,
afraid of them. Yeah, it
you
is.
know,
Yeah,
and
yeah, it's the appearance.
unfortunately, though, in those situations, is that the appearance, but they're not taking into consideration the person who's been falsely accused.
Exactly.
Now
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they're walking around with fingers pointing at them, or people giving them
Hmm.
glances, what did you do, or that. So, not pursuing it has its downsides as well. And you got to obviously uh, look at the victim, but you also have to look at, certainly in these cases, the accused. But
There was
again,
so
going
much in
back
law
to,
enforcement, yeah,
yeah,
that is just political. There's so much
yeah,
political
and
factors that's
as
going
yeah,
on. So,
and it's not unusual, like you say, in cases, even
hmm,
in corporate settings, where they just either don't want to pursue it, or unfortunately, in some cases, you see in companies, they transfer the accused into a different position, hoping, well, they're out of my hair, and perhaps it won't happen again, or that type of thing. But again, going
exactly.
back to the question, is that going through the behavioral analysis interview
Hmm.
is really important, even though from your evidence you do have some serious doubts as to what they said occurred. It's still, again, and I go back to this all the time, saying is that you're still developing a very good rapport with this individual. And I would stress, I think, too, going through the victim's story, what they're saying is try not to challenge them in that interview about stuff.
Hmm.
Hear what they have to say, kind of stick with what we teach in our course as far as the BAI questions go, obviously picking out
Hmm.
which ones are appropriate, which ones aren't. But in my opinion, the punishment question, the second chance question are really essential. The motive question, why would somebody make up a story like this, do you think?
Hmm.
And those are some really good, getting some insight into that person's head as to possibly why they made up this story.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
in the interrogation side of it, if you do pursue it, uh, I think right now, in the times we're living in, is that it might be advantageous to, if you are going to pursue it, to go with a softer approach and saying to the person, based on our investigation, everything that we have, and everything, it indicates you haven't told me the complete truth about this. Rather than saying to the person is that, and this is my opinion, Frank, you certainly may have different thoughts on it, instead of saying is that our investigation indicates that you're making up this story. Because in a lot of these cases, uh, you find is that there may be some element of truth to it, but maybe 85% of the story is made up. The other
Hmm.
is true. So by saying our investigation indicates that you made up this story, might not be the best approach. I would take it a little bit slower in going with the less direct approach in that. That's my
And
thought.
oh yeah, and the big unknown is going to be the subject of the interview. What's her mental state? What's her maturity? What's her
Yeah.
age? What's her life experience? I mean, if I have someone in there who's tough as nails, I'm probably going to run a regular step one positive confrontation. But if I
Yeah,
have
if you get
someone, and
somebody
you
that's
bring
kind
up
of
a real good
defiant
point. Oh
with you
yeah,
during the
yeah,
interview, yeah,
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 yeah, and I mean,
all day
if it's
long.
so
Yeah.
blatantly,
Hmm.
so blatant that it's made up totally. But again, you got to be careful Just that because, again, if you get one part of it wrong, then they're thinking, oh, you don't know anything,
That's right.
thing.
Yes, 100%. Well,
So
Officer Anonymous, yeah.
yeah.
I,
I'd
I
like
hope
to,
that.
if you get back to us
Oh,
on
yeah.
this a little bit more, and certainly, as you see, is that we won't divulge any details, but I would be curious to know a little bit more, as you said, Frank, what the physical evidence might be in this case to indicate that the person is making up the story. And I think if we have a little bit more information on that, we can go to our possible themes, again, to make it easier for the person to acknowledge why they made up the story. And I think if I was pursuing an interrogation in that regard, as I said, is that you have to look at possible reasons why they did it. And the first one is the need for attention and just stressing you're not a bad person. Sometimes people exaggerate, make up stories simply because they don't really want to get that person so much in trouble, but people are treating them poorly and they feel left out. And now all of a sudden when they make up a claim, people are treating them a lot nicer, they're showing much more respect in that. And and I can understand that happening. And I think that's important if it does come to an interrogation that the investigator be saying to the person, I do understand the situation, and that, and I don't want to see this escalate where it's going to turn into something that is going to be a lot worse down the road, and we could, resolve it now before it gets too blown out of proportion.
Exactly. Yes. That would be really good. Officer Anonymous, feel free to email your entire case file to Dan Malloy. Dan Malloy will show up in court and he will testify as to.
you got it, Frank. Yeah. No, but I seriously,
yeah.
If he wants to share some stuff with us, even not so much even for our podcast, and that's something I want to say to people too, is that stuff that you would get to Frank and I, it doesn't have to be information that you'd want on a podcast. I mean, we certainly would be more than happy to specialize situations for you on an individual basis where it's just me and Frank talking to you on this particular case and not for publication at all. So we want to offer our help in that regard, and that's to everybody that has cases out there. It's not just for the podcast, it's to help you out in any way that we can. So
that's right. Yeah, we are a resource. Feel free to use us. We'd really like that.
Yeah, and again, confidentiality is essential, and
that's right.
We strive for that. Yeah.
And speaking of confidentiality, speaking of testifying, are you ready for our next topic, Dan?
I am.
All right, I've got something for you. Dan has never seen this video before. This is a video that was produced out of the state of Connecticut. I double talked this time. His name is, this is going to be Attorney J. Ruane, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. I do stand to be corrected on that, though, Mr. Ruane. I'm going to be watching your video. If you pronounce your last name and I have mispronounced it, my humblest apologies on this. This video was sent to me by a student, Dan. They said, hey, I just typed in Reid Technique on my, on my search bar at YouTube. Can you make a video on this? The good thing about the video is this is less than 6 minutes long, so we should be able to go through this pretty good. So
Perfect.
We'll see what he has to say. That's it. As always, myself and Dan, we're completely open-minded to any critics of the Reid Technique that may be floating around out there. And we also give all of our critics a lot of leeway and a lot of fluff. I mean, if you're a practicing attorney, you may have some strong feelings about the Reid Technique, but Dan and myself, we want to address every single criticism with nothing but charity in it. Now, with that being said, I did get a little bit harsh on the last video that I did a reaction video to a Reid critic, and for all of my listeners and viewers out there, a lot of my angst and attitude came from the fact that he had just copied material from another YouTube creator, never asked permission. He basically ripped their video from the ground up, so I tagged both creators in that, but outside of deliberate malfeasance like this, we have an open mind. Okay, we have an open
Hmm.
mind, but if there's going to be any kind of dirtiness or anything, we will call it out. I don't believe that that is the case with Jay over here. I watched about a minute of it. He seems like he's a pretty cool fella. So, with that being said, what I am going to do right now is I'm going to share our video. I'm going to share the screen with Dan. It'd probably help Dan if I shared so he could see exactly what I'm looking at. Do you see that, Dan? Do you see that
I
nice
do.
little?
I
Oh,
do
how
see
about
it.
that? Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, with that being said, let's hit the power button and let's listen.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jay Ruane. I'm a criminal defense attorney in Connecticut. This is our series on the Fifth Amendment and police interrogations. If you want more information, please reach out to us at ruaneattorneys.com.
Ruane attorneys.
Rain.
Ruane.
Rain.
Rain attorneys. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
all right. My apologies, Jay. I better be careful with your last name. My last name is Shumpert, so everyone, they will go and they will butcher my last name all day long. So, all right, we'll go. I love the effects, though. I like the music. It has some sirens in the background, and I like the background
Get
on
your
this.
attention.
This is pretty
Yeah.
neat. Yeah, yes,
Okay.
it does. Really cool. I like how his logo will pop up. That's pretty
The
awesome.
Reid Technique was named after John E. Reid and Associates.
You get a green check mark. You are correct. It was indeed named after John Edward
Yeah.
Reid. All right,
Yeah.
he is already about 10% ahead of the rest of our critics on that one. So,
A Chicago-based company that specialized in training law enforcement officers in interrogation and interview techniques. The technique itself was developed by John Reid in the 1940s and 50s and was based on the premise that most people who commit crimes will unconsciously betray their guilt through certain verbal and nonverbal behaviors.
so my only quibble with that is they will betray their internal state that they're feeling. Okay, just because I give indicators of deception, it doesn't mean I'm guilty. Maybe I don't want to tell the interviewer where I was last Wednesday because it could cause me shame and embarrassment.
Correct.
Like, am I on the right track on that, Dan?
You
I just
are.
wanna-
You are, Frank.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. I mean, yeah, we're not in the business of turning law enforcement officers into a soothsayer or an oracle or something like that.
and
This
you
is
know, Frank,
simply
another
yeah.
one thing too that, and this is, I think, a common thread through a lot of people that criticize the Reid technique, especially bringing up about behavior as an indicator of truth or deception. In the Reid technique, we are not saying that if I sit you down and I hear your side of the story, your alibi, or whatever it may be, you tell me this happened, this happened, this happened, that I am so insightful that I'm going to be able to say, Frank's lying, Frank's telling me the truth, just based on the way he tells his story. In the Reid technique, we are incorporating behavior-provoking questions that aid us in that evaluation that the person may be deceptive or they may be truthful. It's not just they relate a story and we're making an opinion solely based on that. And that's what I think people seem to ignore when we talk about behavior. And a lot of the critics, they say, behavior is like, what do they say, 50-50 or that. Maybe it is
The
if
average
you just,
person's no better than
if you just
50,
if I sat down and said, okay, Frank, I'm going to tell you a story right now for 5 minutes, and you tell me, is it a liar telling the truth? Yeah, I could see that being 50-50%. But when you start asking me questions regarding my story, and you ask certain questions that John Reid and Associates has developed, as far as our Reid behavioral analysis interview, now that accuracy level is just increasing tremendously because of the both verbal and nonverbal behavior that we're seeing produced by these questions that we're asking people. Not just the story.
Yes. And I mean, it's like you are not making every major decision based off of behavior, and this is something that a lot of the critics miss. There's a pie chart. The biggest part of the pie chart is facts and evidence. Another one is baseline behavior of the individual in front of you, their age, their maturity level, their demographic, their background, all that stuff. And then there's
Right.
another little part of the pie chart, maybe 20 or 30%, that is behavior that you observe in the behavioral analysis interview. When you take all of that together after the interview, you're going to hit the equals button, and then you're going to look at what the outputs are, and that's how we make our evaluations of the behavioral
It's
analysis
kind of a
interview.
common sense approach to
Yeah.
interviewing. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
soothsaying. It's not where we're just guessing in there. No.
Yeah, and even if we steel man the critics' arguments that behavior is so terribly unreliable, let's assume that it's true moving forward. We would still ask these questions because you're still getting information from someone inside of an interview. But what I'm going to do right now,
And it's not just all nonverbal. I mean, a lot of it is verbal responses to the questions that you're
nonverbal,
asking. I mean,
paralinguistic,
you ask somebody a question, is that if I say to you, Frank, did you commit that armed robbery? You might just simply look at me and say no. Well, I'm going to say there's nothing wrong with that answer, even though you may have committed that armed robbery. In that. But in my experience, that would seem a little bit more truthful to me. I wouldn't say you didn't do it based on just that response, but you got to look at some common sense too. And if I said, "Hey Frank, did you commit that armed robbery?" and you say to me, "Well, why would I do something like that? I mean, how could I do that? I wouldn't even know how to go about committing an armed robbery." Well, you ask somebody, what's wrong with that answer? Well, what's wrong with it is they never answered the question. They stalled, and they're laughing in there, and that would tell me is that that particular answer would make me leaning more on the deceptive side. But again, stressing, just because you did that is not saying that you committed that armed robbery. It's another check mark we're going to place in that, let's say, deceptive column or the truthful column.
Yeah.
And that's why in the Reid technique we are looking at the totality of behavior, verbal, nonverbal, paralinguistics.
And not only
just
that, but we ask a series of questions to determine their suitability for questioning. We check on their mental state, their sleep, their food, all that good stuff. And then we ask a series of baseline questions. So it's not that one particular behavior over another is deceptive or truthful. We look at every single person subjectively. But with that being said, what I think is going on, now I haven't watched the entire video with Jay here yet, but it seems like what's going on is he may have gotten some of the stuff from the internet. He may have watched some other YouTube some videos on here.
Mm-hmm.
He may have even have talked to some law enforcement officers who were just misguided. Believe it or not everyone who studies us knows exactly, because I mean our material is kind of dense. The Reid technique, I've always said that it's simple, it just takes time to understand it. There's a lot of gears moving in there.
Good.
So I'm just going to give him some benefit of the doubt on this. He may have just gotten may have just gotten something off the internet on it. So.
Reid and his associates developed a systematic method for interrogating suspect, which they called the Reid technique, that involves a structured series of steps designed to elicit a confession.
All right. I know that he's pulled this stuff from watching some other YouTube videos.
Right.
This is what the critics always say. This is right here. With that being said, just to kind of clarify for Jay, if Jay is watching this, and we would be humbled and appreciated if you did, sir, but the purpose of the Reid technique is to elicit the truth or discover the truth. Just because somebody gives Frank Shumper a confession, it doesn't mean that confession is valid. The confession may not have anything to do with the case. We need to ask a series of questions to see, hey, is this confession substantiated? Can we independently verify anything in it? If the purpose of the Reid technique was just to get a confession, that would make us like every single other interviewing and interrogation school that's out there in the United States. The purpose of the Reid technique is to discover the truth. The purpose of our theme development, the 9 steps of interrogation, is to get that person to be truthful for us. Because the investigator doesn't have a crystal ball. We can't look into it and see what the person who made the accusation is doing. We need them to be truthful with us as they provide us information. If that's in the form of a confession, as we teach here in our best practices, the confession is never the end of the story. You're always
Right.
looking for dependent or independent verification of that confession in there. So, me and Dan and everyone else at John Reid and Associates, we understand why people say that the purpose of our technique is to get a confession, but it is factually wrong. It is just factually wrong. To bring an analogy into play here, okay? When I was growing up a Protestant, I was always told that Catholics worship Mary. That's what I was told. It wasn't until I began to investigate the matter for myself that I found out that that's not the case. However, there are Protestants out there who think that Catholics worship Mary no matter what. So the same thing with the Reid technique. We are telling
Frank, that's
you,
interesting that you
yeah,
say
we're
that.
telling, we're telling
You
the
know,
critics, yeah. What's that, Dan? I mean, that's just
it's interesting. Growing up as a kid, I was always told, and this is coming from my Catholic upbringing, and that I was always told if you, as a little kid, if you went into a Protestant church, oh, you were going to hell, and that. And I, it just, when you mention that, it has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it did bring back some really memories. And I remember my grandmother, she was from Ireland, and the first time she
oh my
took
gosh,
me,
you had an Irish grandma, Dan.
oh my God,
Okay,
Flanagan and
yeah,
Malloy's, yeah. One of the times I'll tell you a good story that it's a true story of what happened to me by from my grandfather, giving me some Irish advice that didn't quite work out for me. But in any event, is that she wanted to. They were having a little fair to raise money for this Protestant school near our house, and she wanted to take me in there to play all the games and all that. And Frank, I was terrified. I was terrified to go in there, just shaking as thinking, "Oh my God, I'm going to go to hell if I go in there." It's just what you've been told, and I can see that is that the way people have presented stuff that again isn't true, and that's what I see about the Reid technique. It's just a lot of this stuff it isn't true, and we're trying, hopefully, to get across to people is that. What is true about it, what's exaggerated, and what's completely false.
Yeah, Dan, and we can disagree with the critic who thinks that there are some critics out there and they hate a behavior no matter what. They think that the human ability to determine truth or deception through behavior is just absolute bunk. Despite that's not what we teach here. We look for indicators. Look, we can disagree with that. That is perfectly fine.
Absolutely.
I can respect their opinion on that. They can bring their scientific studies. I don't agree with those scientific studies for various reasons. I think a lot of them are pseudoscience and cheap shots. But
that's the other thing, too, Frank.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that is that when you say these scientific studies on behavior, I want to know what they are. Like you just said, is that, well, these scientific studies show that, it's less than chance or it's no better than chance. Okay, show me that study. I want to know what the study is. I want to see how it was conducted, and then let's talk about that study. What's valid in it, what's invalid in it versus the real world. And that's what we got to look at.
Yeah. I've identified 9 such studies going back all the way to 1996 up until about 2023. We should do an entire episode where we go through these things and we look at it. Yeah, but to kind of to circle and bring us back, we can argue.
Did you lose your train of thought, disagree. Frank? I sure did.
Actually, I didn't. I'm right on point with this, but
I did.
We can disagree with certain aspects. Yeah. But when people cast these dispersions against us, hey, John Reid and Associates says that the purpose is to learn the truth, but really it's not. It's like, how do you defend yourself against an accusation like that? We've gone under oath in jury trials and depositions testifying that the whole point of what we teach is to learn the truth. What have these critics had to do? When they're under oath and they are asked to present evidence of proven to the contrary that the Reid technique is used for something other than producing a confession, they can never do it.
They can't.
And as the originators of the technique, the company should get the last say in what the purpose is. And the purpose is to discover the truth. If you don't agree with that, don't just mislabel us. Or you can say, well, I don't think the methodology is effective to finding the truth. But don't say something that we've never said and we've never claimed and say that that's what we're really doing. There's a logical fallacy involved in it, Dan, and I can't remember off the top of my head because it's getting close to dinner here. But with that being said, let's listen to our friend here again. Yeah.
Okay.
Over time, the technique has been refined and expanded and is now widely used by law enforcement agencies across the U.S. and around the world. Today, the Reid technique is considered one of the most widely used and influential interrogation methods, and it continues to be taught and used by law enforcement agencies for the purpose of investigating crimes and obtaining confessions.
I agree with 99% of what Jay just said, but it is not to obtain a confession, it's to elicit the truth. But we will humbly accept the accusation. We are the standard bearer of interviewing and interrogation in the United States. I will humbly accept that.
We are also, Frank, the ones that are only allowed to teach the Reid technique.
But
that's
Dan,
the other.
But Dan, hold on a second. I've got all these fly-by-night schools with 8 steps instead of 9.
Yeah.
There's all these other rip-off schools with behavioral provoking questions. I wonder if they have a Reid certificate hanging on their wall somewhere.
Where did they get those questions? Where did they get those steps, or what do they call them? Phases. And you look back, and it's all coming back to, again, us. And that's what happens when you get people out there teaching, going through our school or reading our books and then saying, oh, I can teach this. And they go out and start doing it, and they start screwing it up. And that's where a lot of these problems occur. Oh, I'm teaching the Reid technique. You're not teaching the Reid technique. You're not allowed to teach the Reid technique unless you're working for John Reid and Associates, period.
So, yes, and everyone out there should know is that a lot of our material is floating around out there, but everything is copyrighted, okay? Like, if you attend one of our seminars... Doesn't
seem to matter a lot of times, unfortunately.
Yeah. Now, what I've seen is that I've seen some detectives out there, they'll take the Reid technique of interviewing interrogation, and they get damn good at it, okay? They get really, really good. And then what they do is they'll retire, and they open up a school that is just too similar to us. And my thing about it is like, come on, girls. I mean, you should have integrity. I mean, honor, all that stuff. I mean, to go out there and do that. And if you do it, don't make your behavioral provoking questions the exact same as ours. I mean, it's like
think of some stuff on your own.
No. Now, some of them are pretty clever. Although there was this one fella, and he had this video, Dan, just bashing the Reid technique. It's so bad that I'm not going to do a reaction video to him because I think he's crazy. But he's retired law enforcement. He's in the Midwest. And the system that he has is science-based, this system, right? But he has 42 levels of evaluation to determine if the person is truthful or deceptive. And this is the most complicated system I have ever encountered. I signed up for a free version of his program just to see what it was. And then I realized, this is like some Gnostic occult stuff. I'm staying away from this, man. This is just so bizarre. So I had to tell our student, I'm like, no, that's a whole ball of wax and crazy. Anyway, now I have lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Okay, let's go back to it.
Regular people should be aware of the Reid technique because it can sometimes result in false confessions.
Yes, you should be aware of the Reid technique. Go on www.reid.com, Ordinary People of America, and sign up for our seminars. Okay?
And if you did that, you'd see the Reid technique is not getting false confessions.
That's right. Sign up and you can learn all about it, okay? Don't watch these YouTube videos. Go out there and sign up. Or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. And we will tell you a lot about the Reid technique. We'll absolutely tell you. So, and again, he's tacking on in order to obtain a confession.
Due to the psychological pressure applied during the questioning process. The technique has been critical.
Any thoughts on that? The psychological pressure. One thing that's difficult with these critics, and I'm not saying that Jay is in here. I think what it is with Jay is there was a chat search, there was an AI produced script, or he. And this isn't an insult. If I wanted to have a channel like what Jay's doing, I would do the same thing. It is not a criticism of him, but I think that he's only going surface level with what other people have said about it, and he hasn't really done a deeper dive into it. And that's understandable. The man's an attorney, billable hours. He probably has other stuff that he's working on. And the rest of his stuff looks pretty good. I mean, I've looked at his channel. I mean, I think it looks pretty cool. But a lot of the critics will not define their terms. And there's a lot of presuppositions in their argument. A presupposition is it's like a premise that is assumed, it's not proven. So they'll use terms like psychological pressure. Well, what does that mean?
Coercion, all that. Exactly. What does it mean?
Coercion? Yeah. Let's define our terms and then let's move on. But there's not a lot of defining of the terms in there. So let's see what
criticized for its potential to violate a suspect's rights and to elicit false confessions, particularly.
Okay, what we're doing is we are assuming a lot of baggage in his argument right now. Okay, he is sneaking in more presuppositions. Okay, he's made a couple of presuppositions that Reid has psychological pressure. No substantiating argument behind that presupposition. He's made another claim. The second claim that he has made is that it produces false confessions and that people are particularly vulnerable to it. He's made 3 claims to it. What I would expect from somebody of a good level
law
of
background.
Law background and intellectual integrity is, let's stop right here. Let's define our terms. Let's prove the premises.
Show me the proof.
Before you give me your conclusions, okay? Before we do it. If I was formally debating a Reid critic, or not even a debate, if they were just asking me questions, I'm going to define what an interview is, what an interrogation is. I'm going to give them my definitions within the framework that I'm working on. And then if they want substantiated information, then I would provide the substantiated information before I present the conclusions to my arguments. That is a good, honest way to debate. But this video is less than 6 minutes long. Maybe he just doesn't have the time. So we'll see. Are we ready to
yes, we are.
move?
Okay. From vulnerable individuals such as minors and individuals with intellectual or mental disabilities.
So I am beginning to wonder if there is a script running around the internet, Dan. I have heard the exact same phrase from multiple sources out there. The exact same phrase. Videos, podcasts, articles that are online. This lets me think that, and I'm not saying that Jay is a part of this, but I think that a lot of our critics are now repeating each other, and they've repeated each other so much that the algorithm and the AI, Chat, Claude, and Perplexity, some of this other stuff, I think that they're just repeating back these scripts, because this is the exact same talking point, almost verbatim, that we saw in Jeff's video, that we saw in Simon's video, and I saw with Mr. Clueless in Case by Case, which is a terrible video. I don't recommend anyone even watch it. I'm thinking about just taking it down, because that Case by Case did such a terrible job with us. But with that being said,
the Reid technique consists of 9 steps, which are typically applied in a sequential manner during an interrogation.
Okay, I mean, all right, that's the
that's
kindergarten version of it. Oh, okay, yeah. At least he got 9 steps and not 12, like our last fella. Okay, so he did get the number correct. All right.
Number 1, fact analysis.
Okay, wait. Oh, Jay, no.
Now he's starting the interview with the interrogation
Jay, no. Leroy Jenkins. Oh, man.
Yeah. Step 1 is our...
no.
Step 1 is where we advise the person that they did it.
Jeff, my name is Frank. This is Dan. I don't know if we've introduced ourselves to you, but you seem like a really cool guy, okay? You have the personality that I think I would get along with very, very well. And so I am going to extend an open offer to you, okay? I will give you 30 minutes of my free time to answer any clarifications about the Reid technique. I will give you what an interview is, what an interrogation is, and I'm pretty sure that I've got, and I'm sorry to get out of frame, I've got a bunch of books here at my house. I will send you a book on the Reid technique. I will send you one, sir, okay? I respect you. I've looked at your other videos, but you are so far off the mark right now that if I didn't think that somebody else prepared the script for you, I wouldn't think as much. I wouldn't have as high an opinion as I do right now. You are so wrong and so off base with this, I don't even know where to begin. Dan, can you help us out? Is step one of interrogation the factual analysis, sir?
No. Factual analysis is even before you begin an interview.
Mm-hmm.
You're going over the information, not even with your suspect in there. So it's taking into consideration the reports from the victim, any lab reports that you might have, all that information that goes into an investigation.
And that's before
many
you ever
times even
talk
before
to
you're talking
anybody.
to the person.
Yeah. So phase one, our factual analysis, Jay, is basically
In our 9
the
steps,
investigation
step
itself.
one is advise them that they did it. That's step one.
Yeah. So
in the 9 steps of interrogation, but only in the interrogation.
What he's done is he's conflated the factual analysis with the BAI and the 9 steps. So that's an accomplishment, actually. That's pretty good. I like that. That's pretty good.
Okay.
But hey, Jay, it's confusing if you've never dealt with it directly. I totally get it. When I took the seminar in 2014, sir, I didn't understand a whole lot till like after day 3. So I totally get if you're confused in here. We're not.
Frank, too, a lot of investigators even say, going to the course, one of the things I really learned from this course is that there is a difference between an interview and an interrogation. And most investigators who've never been trained by us don't realize that there is that difference. And that we've always taught that absolutely the interview is not an interrogation. And the interrogation is not an interview. I mean, it's that simple.
Well, let's see how else he does. And Jeff, we're not laughing at you. We're laughing, what is it, with you? I think that's something. We're laughing at you, sir. I'm sorry. But hey, it's funny. We needed a laugh. Thank you so much.
Collecting and analyzing information about the crime and the suspect to determine the most likely scenario and the motives of the suspect.
So, hang on. There is an AI video being played. It looks like there's a plastic. It looks like one of those plastic clear bags. It looks like it could be a Glock, a Sig Sauer. I'm not quite sure what kind of pistol it is. It looks like it's missing the top part of the slide, and it's supposed to say Exhibit A. Okay, looks like it's kind of weird.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if this is AI or not, but I can't think of any interview or interrogation where I'm going to slide a pistol to a suspect. And it looks like the magazine. Wait, it looks like the magazine is in the well, and it looks like it's been chambered, and it's in a plastic bag. So, this has to be AI or actors or something. I don't know, but that is just absolutely wild. Must be somewhere out west where they're all cowboys or something. I don't know.
Fact analysis examples are reviewing the crime scene photos, interviewing witnesses, and examining the physical evidence. Number 2, behavior analysis.
So I think what he's doing is he's describing. So I think he's just mislabeling. Like instead of he's calling all 3 phases the interrogation.
Steps.
Yeah. So maybe
you're
I
right.
don't know.
All 3 are the interrogation. Without kind of ignoring the interview.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's see.
Observing the suspect's behavior to determine if they are lying or telling the truth.
No, you're not a human polygraph. You're not a human, crystal ball time machine. It's a pie chart. Your investigation is a pie chart. About 60% of your investigation is the facts and elements that you've collected before you've even spoken to someone. Their behavior of truthfulness or deception is simply an indicator. It's data that you are collecting during the interview. You're not making any decision 100% based strictly on behavior of truthfulness or deception. And something else is that we're not called to determine guilt or innocence. That's a legal term that the courts are required to do after trial, conviction. I mean, all that good stuff, okay, or bad stuff, I guess, depending on what side you're on. We, or law enforcement, is called to determine probable cause, not truth or, not innocence or guilt, which he knows this. I mean, I would never dare to lecture, an attorney on that, but here, let's move on here.
Behavior analysis examples could be observing the suspect's body language and looking for signs of deception. Number 3.
Okay, again, we're not really defining terms, but it's, it's less than 6 minutes, so let's see.
Development of a rapport. Building a relationship with the...
Okay, what development of rapport?
Stop it. Stop it and get the steps correct. It's simple as that.
Well, I was thinking what he was doing was just describing the 3 phases, but now it's like, okay, I don't even know what he's doing. Okay, for those of you who are not familiar with the Reid technique, there are 3 phases. You have the factual analysis, the interview, and the interrogation. There's no step or phase of rapport. Rapport is software that we have running in the background through the attitude, the posture, and the tone of voice of the questioner. Okay? We do all the thinking for you, so you don't even have to think about rapport building in these interviews. That's running in the background. That's creatine that you're taking before your workout. But in his defense, okay, Dan, to play devil's advocate for Jay here, we are seeing the pitfalls, I believe, of AI generated scripts. What I'm seeing with AI right now is that if a lie and a mistruth is repeated enough times, it seems like the artificial intelligence will think it's true, and it just reports that. Mm-hmm. And as a matter of fact, in the law profession, they've been having some of their legal briefs hallucinating cases that don't actually exist. So we're having so I'm starting to see the pitfalls of this, and I'm going to look at Jay as an early warning sign for me. Hey, maybe I better double check what Claude is telling me. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make sure I double down now, because I wouldn't want to fall into a situation that he is, where the people with expertise can clearly see that the script is wrong right here. It's just wrong. So,
suspect by showing empathy and understanding is a key segment of the Reid technique. Development of rapport examples could be complimenting the suspect on their honesty, offering them a drink or a...
You're confusing us with something else, buddy. You're confusing us with something else. I don't know. I will tell you this, though. One of the signs that you're dealing with a grifter, you're dealing with a lot of fluff, that you're wasting your time and money, is if you're taking an interview class, and this is former law enforcement. I've had my time wasted by these BS artists in interviews and interrogations, is if they spend an excessively long time talking about rapport building, and they tell these stories that can never be verified or falsified about, he wouldn't talk to anyone until I showed up with my cup of hot water and my cheeseburger, and that built rapport, because then it blah, 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 blah. Whenever I hear stuff like that now, I'm like, okay, all right. Let me see a court report of all of your cases then, with your name on a warrant. I'm suspecting you had one home run and that was it. And we're being all subjected to it. I've had that. All right. Sorry. Not you, Jay. That is something else entirely.
Cigarette and listening to their perspective. Handling denials.
What is this video? What the hell is this? Oh my gosh. So for those of you that are listening to us audio only, Jay showed a video. It looks like they're in a house. The blinds are down. It could be dusk. It could be night. This could be night lights. They have a fella. It looks like his arms are secured securely behind him. He's in a chair. He's slumped over. You have let's see here. Looks like we have an individual on the left of him.
Smoking like a cigarette.
Looks like a pistol is in the 8 o'clock position, smoking a cigarette, and he has a shoulder holster with no weapon in it. The other person is standing over him Badge is hanging off of his pocket. Looks like we have another shoulder rig. Why does AI always generate a shoulder rig? Who uses shoulder rigs anymore? Although I shouldn't say it, there may be someone like, oh, I have a shoulder rig. I mean, I think they're cool. Looks like we have one thing that I think is ridiculous about a shoulder rig and this stuff is A, that's not what law enforcement does now, and B, even if he had to draw his pistol, he's going to be caught in like a cross draw now, and he's going to barrel everyone in the freaking room. I mean, you wouldn't see professional law enforcement like this. It's just ridiculous. Let's see here. Okay.
Confronting the suspect.
Oh God! What the heck?
Well,
Sorry.
you just saw somebody there, one of the investigators jumping in the guy's face. Whoa, that is that is not
all right.
what we do or
If
teach.
if you're looking at this, me and Dan did a whole thing on the demeanor. We did a whole thing on room setup. So we don't advocate standing over him, leaning down, screaming at him. It looks like he has a bag of dope. Flinging it in his face
with evidence and pushing back against their...
Okay, he just hit this subject right here. He made physical... Did he? Hang on. Sorry, I'm
listening to their perspective. Handling denials. Confronting the suspect with evidence and pushing back...
Yeah, he did.
You just hit him. Oh, Jeff, come on. I'm sorry, Jeff. Jay, come on, man. This is ridiculous, dude. What if me and Dan did a video on tricks that lawyers use to cross-examine you, and there was a witness on the stand, and it had a bunch of attorneys around there smoking and yelling at him, and then the defense attorney walks across and just slaps the witness in the face. Like, what would you think of our perspective from that point forward? Come on, man. This is just ridiculous. Here, let's go on.
Against their denials is another technique. Handling denials examples are presenting evidence and pointing out inconsistencies in the...
Clearly, that's not how we overcome denials, good sir.
That invites denials.
Yeah.
Number 5, overcoming objections.
So...
Where did
his steps
the
are
objections
so out of
go?
whack. Yeah. What happened to our objections, man? Well,
what happened to themes? What happened to?
So this is what I did. Okay, I had my brother ask Chat to describe the 9 steps of interrogation, and it described like 11 steps on there, and they were all out of whack. And so I used my version of Chat and asked it to give me the 9 steps of interrogation, and it was spot on. I mean, it gave us the 9 steps. So Chat is giving a different answer when given the same prompt. I don't know why. So I think what happens with
interesting,
Jay, and I think what it does is it goes off of information that you've pulled before you started the search. So maybe Jay right here used his Chat or used his AI or whoever made the video for him. And I'm sorry, Jay. I don't mean, if you take offense at this, I'm sorry. It's a miscommunication. I'm just going off of what I'm seeing, sir. But maybe... The research,
the thing is, though, Jeff, is that
it's on our website.
Frank is being kind here in that, but I know it's one thing to criticize the Reid Technique, but what do you make it? What are you criticizing us when we don't do something, or what you're saying is false as far as these steps go, or that's not what the Reid Technique does.
Well, I'll say this too, Jay. At a jury trial, I swore in under my old law enforcement job that I'd used the Reid technique of interviewing and interrogation, and I got cross-examined by a defense attorney, and she didn't know what she was talking about. I mean, she had no clue. She didn't have the 9 steps right. She couldn't make a distinction between interrogation and the interview as it's taught, and I mean.
I think if you're going to be
not looking good on there,
right? Testifying in court is that you're being correct. Frank's correcting the defense attorney, and that, and people, especially judges or juries, are looking at that as saying, "Whoa."
Well, the bad part, Dan, is that I had to give them my workbook because I was referring to it, and that was one of the first times I'd ever testified. I didn't know that whatever you had in front of you had to be or it could be submitted, and they ended up taking my original workbook that I had in 14. It was gone. They took it. They took my stuff. What are you doing? Are you referring to notes? I was like, uh-oh. I was like, what? What do I do? What do I do? The real funny thing about defense attorneys is that they will rip you on the stand, Dan, like just
Yeah.
destroy you. And then you're like walking off of this thing feeling like your soul died. And then they'll come up to you, oh, you did a great job, blah, blah, blah. That was good. I look forward to seeing you again. And I'm like, what the heck, man? Like, you just created
Yeah.
my life hell for like, you know, hours out of my day here. Like, I mean, I'm not going to be able to eat for the rest of the day. It's like, I love them. I love them, though. Good attorney is worth their weight in gold, and they sure will charge for it, too. But
Yeah.
Overcoming the suspect's objections to confessing by addressing their concerns and fears. Some examples are addressing the suspect's fear of going to jail and
At this point, Dan, I'm not. I mean, we've kind of made our point with him. I don't want to nitpick him at this point. I mean, we could make this whole thing an hour.
Yeah.
I say,
I just want to see, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I just want to hear what this next statement is going to be.
Yeah, yeah.
I think a promise is going to be made here.
Okay. So you're calling it a promise. All right, yeah, we'll see.
offering them a more lenient sentence in exchange for a confession.
Dude,
Did I
wow.
whoa, and I never saw this before.
Yeah. That's some smart thinking there. I like that.
Yeah.
All right.
One thing, Jay, promises and threats have no place in interrogations. Plain and simple.
That's right. Yeah.
And that is,
I think
and,
what I'm
and-
gonna. Yeah.
And you look at promises and threats as one of the main reasons why people do get false confessions.
Yeah.
Because they
I'll tell you.
promise or
Yeah.
threaten.
I'll tell you
And
what
we
I'll
don't do
do. I think what. Sorry. I think what we should do is let him know that we made this reaction video as a professional courtesy, and I'm going to send him a link to some of his investigator tips.
Yeah.
And Joe does an amazing job at clarifying a lot of this stuff for us. So, but for the record, for everyone out there, we teach never to make any promises of leniency. We teach never to make any kind of threats, even implied leniency and implied threats. That is a no-no. Part of our best practices, we've never taught that. Okay? Never taught
Right.
it. Right, Dan? Right?
You don't.
Dan?
You don't.
Okay,
You
good,
don't
good,
teach
good,
it.
Yeah. Supposed to, all right. That's it.
Okay.
Number 6, presenting an alternative question.
Hey, so here's what I'm worried about, Dan, okay? If we keep doing videos like this, what if we get someone who really knows their stuff, though?
I hope. Well, that would be good. I'd like to get it.
Well, I mean, like, we could react to a video for someone that really knows their stuff, but what if we get challenged to a debate and we think it's someone with a knowledge level of, like, Jeff Hampton, and we go in there just unprepared? Like, what I'm worried about is that these criticisms are just such fish in a barrel that we're not going to improve our debate skills, or we're not going to really know what the hardcore Reid haters think. If you are watching this and you are a former attendee or you're interested in the Reid Technique, me and Dan are going to have an open request for you. Are you ready, Dan?
Yeah, I'm ready.
You didn't know that I was going to wrap me up.
I am.
Send us hard videos, okay? Nothing against Jay, nothing against Jeff Hampton. I have a whole lot against Case by Case because he's ripping off other creator content. But send us the hard critics. Send us the one who are referencing behavioral studies. Send us the ones that are referencing some case studies. Make it so that me and Dan will have to bring in some heavy hitters to address these criticisms. Some of the heavy hitters, like some other members of our company. But a lot of these
Joe
videos...
Buckley.
Joe
our
Buckley,
President,
that's right.
President John
CEO,
Reed
that's right.
is going to be on. Joe's schedule is very tight right now, but he has promised to be coming on and addressing a lot of these criticisms of the Reid Technique, and also addressing some of these cases in which false confessions were actually obtained, unfortunately, and talking about the things that the investigator should never have done. Not using the Reid Technique, but just plain and simple. You don't do this in interrogations and that. And that's the other thing, is that if you don't want to use the Reid Technique, that's fine. You don't have to, but we'd like you to. But, you know, there are certain practices that no matter what you're following, you should do and you should not do.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's see what else we got.
Presenting the suspect with a choice between two alternatives, one of which leads to admitting guilt. Perhaps you can ask the suspect if they committed the crime or if someone else committed the crime and they were only present.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see what else he's got.
That's a great example. Now, reinforcing the suspect's decision to confess by making them feel that it was their idea and the right thing to do is telling the suspect that confessing is always the right thing to do, and it shows that they have a conscience. People want to feel that
No, wait a minute. We never tell people confessing is the right thing to do.
Well, because he's never defined his terms, and because he does not have the 9 steps, he's it's all jumbled up. It's hard for me to track where he's even at.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, for me to give a critique,
you're right.
I feel like the more we move, the more we're just going to sink into the bog at this point because he's so off. He's so off with this. I literally don't know where to begin. I mean,
I want to hear just one more part.
Okay.
Doing the right thing. Another step is confronting the suspect with specific details of the crime to obtain a full and complete confession.
What?
See?
I'm feeding them dependent evidence? Is that what he is suggesting here?
Yes.
That's what it sounds like.
Yep. And again, that's where false confessions occur. Because you told the person things that only the guilty person knows. It's the opposite. The suspect tells us and confirms evidence that we have or evidence or information that only the guilty person knows. When you supply it, that's where you risk the false confessions.
Exactly. Yes. Let's see what else.
Or people looking at it as a false confession.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that's the other thing is that people confess, you know, and it may be actually the truth in what they're saying, but because of what the investigator said or did, falls into that category where people start to believe is that, well, maybe the person didn't do it, even though they confessed to it.
Be asking the suspect to describe how they committed the crime and what their motives were. Next up, there's closure, wrapping up the interrogation.
I think he's merging the Reid technique with, what is that other methodology? What is it called? It's not cognitive interviewing. It's not, what was it? I had something similar when I was in law enforcement, but I remember a lot of those terms in it.
Yeah.
But he's conflating the two of them. Yeah.
By obtaining a written or recorded confession and ensuring that the suspect understands the consequences of their confession. This could be having them sign a written confession and make sure they understand what they're admitting to. If a regular person is subjected to the Reid technique, it's recommended that they exercise their right to remain silent and request to speak to an attorney. And you have to be very specific. You should not feel obligated to answer any questions from the police, and you should avoid making any incriminating statements. It's so important to remember that anything you say can be used against you in court. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.
I can't argue with you there. That's legal advice. I'm not an attorney. I'm not qualified to say one way or another.
Kind of makes his job, though, harder if the person does confess, doesn't it?
Well, it might make his job more difficult.
I like these people that say, don't talk to police. You never talk to police. That's kind of generating business for themselves in that regard.
Here's my thing. And I'm not an attorney, but if everyone decides they're not going to talk to the police, who's going to be sending him business? I mean, what are you gonna?
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, me and Dan are not attorneys. We're not authorized to give legal advice, so I'm going to have to defer and not endorse. But I mean, you know what I mean. We're not. I can't even give a good disclaimer on it because I'm such a non-attorney. But if he says that and you're in the state of Connecticut and Jay is your attorney, by all means, follow his advice on that. But
you got to follow your attorney's advice.
Yeah, that's right.
What do they say? You're stupid if you don't.
Dan, what's your closing thoughts on this one?
Well, again, is that it's just I don't mind people criticizing, but make your critiques of the Reid technique true. Don't make them false, and that's what I keep seeing. and hearing these false claims being made, and it just gets more frustrating. And it's always going to be there, but at least try to learn what the Reid technique is before you go out and criticize it.
Yes, I agree with you. My bottom line is this, my conclusions, my takeaway is this, is that I think that Jay means well. I think that Jay cares about his clients, and Jay
Absolutely. I'm sure he does.
And kudos to him. I think having a QR code for your contact information is really, really, really cool. I think that's totally awesome. As a matter of fact, me and Dan might have to take a page out of your book. We may have to, but I think your YouTube channel is really cool, Jay. I really like it. And as a full-time instructor with John Reid and Associates, I will be reaching out to you, not out of hostility, but as I said before, I will be willing to answer any questions you have about our methodology and our technique and all. So that's all I have. Yeah.
That's all we got.
That's all we got. Thank you, and thank you to our listeners.
Thank you.